Welcome back to another episode of The Football Chemist, where we use data to go through football's biggest talking points without boring or confusing you with all of that technical jargon. Today we'll discuss the rumours swirling around Chelsea right now, in particular their hunt for a new striker. The Blues have already signed Liam Delap for a reported £30 million, but have also been linked with Hugo Ekitike and Ekitike Osimhen as they look to add to their roster to bridge the gap to the top of the league. But which of those strikers will be best for them, and how can they fit into Chelsea's system? Let's get into it. So first things first, why do Chelsea need strikers? Well, the simple answer is they're not good enough in front of goal right now, and they need a central striker who can step up. Because when we look at some of their numbers, including their goals minus XG from last season, we can see that they're actually one of the worst in the league for this. They're 17th when you take their non-penalty goals minus their expected goals, which shows that they've scored about 7 fewer goals than they should have over the course of last season. And when we take a deeper look into these numbers and we look at the 20 players who performed worst in this statistic last season, we can see that 3 of those 20 players are Chelsea players. You've got Noni Madueke here in 7th and Nicolas Jackson and Cole Palmer in 11th and 12th. And you can see here how these 3 players underperforming respected to the XG has caused a bit of a problem. Now, there are 2 reasons why someone might be underperforming their XG, and this is really well explained by Adam Cleary in his YouTube channel. One of them is that a player is simply getting unlucky and they're coming up against good goalkeepers. But then the other one is that their quality of shots is not good enough. And the biggest culprit for Chelsea has been Nicolas Jackson, because whilst he is underperforming his XG here, and this could be due to a bit of bad luck, is also missing big chances and not scoring enough goals to compensate for them, which is evident when we take a look at this graph here. As you can see, Jackson is 4th for big chances missed over the course of last season, but when you compare him to some of the other players on this top 10 list, he's got far fewer goals. Yes, you've got players like Salah and Haaland missing a lot of chances, but they're also scoring a lot of chances. But when you take a look at this graph, it's only Jackson, Sarr and Calvert-Lewin who have got such a big discrepancy between these 2 numbers, and that is a real cause for concern. And whilst Maresca has publicly backed Jackson, he has caused recent frustration, most notably when he got sent off in April. And you'd imagine that if the price was right, they would move him on somewhere. So who can solve Chelsea's issues? Well, fortunately, they've already signed one player who can help them deal with this. So Liam Delap is now a Blue. But who is he? Liam Delap is a 22-year-old striker who used to play for Ipswich, and he is also the son of ex-Barclays legend Rory Delap. He came through Derby's academy as a kid before moving to Manchester City as a 16-year-old. But after just 2 appearances for the club and a string of loans to the Championship, Delap joined Ipswich last summer for around £20 million. He had a strong season for Ipswich despite getting relegated, and his performances caught the eye of Chelsea, who signed him earlier this week for approximately £30 million. As for his style of play, he's known for being very strong on the ball and a very good carrier of the ball too, because when we look at his stats at a glance, you can see he loves to take the ball into the final third, he likes to take defenders on, and when you just look at his physique in general, he's strong enough to hold on to the ball well and hold defenders off at the same time. So he's quick, he's good on the ball, and he's strong. A very well-rounded striker, and this is kind of the mould that Chelsea are looking at, and we'll see this more when we take a look at their other options. However, when we take a look at his polygons, we do see a bit of an issue emerging where he's not the best passer. So up here, I've got 2 polygons for Delap. One of them was last season in the Premier League, and one of them was the season before in the Championship. And the reason why I've got both is because I don't think his Premier League numbers are representative of how he'll perform for Chelsea, as playing for a lower league side such as Ipswich did kind of hamper his ability to play with his natural freedom. But when we look at both polygons, we can see his numbers for key passes and progressive passes are a bit so-so. They're better in the Championship, but they're not particularly good in the Premier League. And if he's not the best passer, he could struggle at a top team like Chelsea. Furthermore, his returns in front of goal are a bit modest. We saw this with his non-penalty XGs in the polygon, but this is more evident when we look at his goals per 90 and assists per 90 across his career. Yes, they're trending on the up, and yes, he had a fairly impressive season last year with 0.42 goals per 90 for Ipswich, but these are still not the numbers of a top player. This would convert to about 12 or 13 goals per season, which is not enough as a leading striker for a club like Chelsea. He could up his game if he goes to a better club where he'll get better service, but at the same time, this could be the peak of his powers. So when Chelsea need a guaranteed goal scorer, is Delap the solution? Probably not. But fortunately for Chelsea, there are still a couple of strikers who they are linked to in the transfer market. One of them is Eintracht Frankfurt's Hugo Ekitike. Now, Hugo Ekitike is not the first Frankfurt player called Hugo who I've analysed on this channel, but who is he? Hugo Ekitike is a 22-year-old French striker who plays for Frankfurt. He came through the academy at Reims before being signed by PSG in 2023 after he had a successful loan stint there. However, he spent just half a season in Paris before he got loaned out to Frankfurt and then made the move permanent last summer. And then this season, he's really had a coming-of-age season, scoring 15 goals and getting 8 assists last season, which was actually the 5th highest in the Bundesliga last season. As for his style of play, again, just like Delap, he's predominantly a ball carrier. We see this when we look at his statistics at a glance, where he likes his progressive carries, he likes his successful take-ons, he likes carrying the ball into the penalty area. And this is very encouraging news for Chelsea, because it shows they're thinking more about their signings rather than the more scattergun approach that they've had since Todd Boehly took over the club a few years back. But what separates Ekitike from Delap is that when we look at his polygon, we can see he's not just a good ball carrier, but a good passer too. It's a very well-rounded polygon here, and this shows his potential to develop into a top player. He's not the finished product yet, but he could be a very good player if he is nurtured in the right environment. The only stats here that are really down are his goals and his progressive passes, but we can see both of those improving with time. And when you look at his other stats, it shows that there's a very good player in there. And when we compare his goals per 90 over the last few seasons to Jackson, we can see he does have the edge on him. Apart from 2022 to 2023, Ekitike has just been marginally ahead, and this may seem like a small difference, but this does add up to 4 or 5 goals over the course of the season, and that does have big consequences. However, when we look at his goals minus XG, we can see he suffers from a similar problem to Jackson, where, especially last season, he's right in the negative for this stat. This shows that he is not as clinical as he should be as a striker. Yes, this could develop with time, but this could also be a warning sign that he's not the most clinical striker. And what Chelsea need right now is a clinical player who puts away chances, not a player who gets a lot of chances but misses them. Because just like Jackson, he misses big chances too. He's 5th in the Bundesliga last season for big chances missed. So is he the answer to all of Chelsea's problems? Well, he's got a very good profile, but at the end of the day, there are issues with his finishing, and Frankfurt are demanding up to 100 million euros for him, so it could be a very pricey gamble should Chelsea go down this route. But who are Chelsea's other options? Fortunately, they've been linked to a tried and tested striker in Victor Osimhen. Now, this is a player who I'm sure you know a lot more about, but just in case you don't, here's a quick summary. Victor Osimhen is a 26-year-old Nigerian striker who plays for Napoli. He signed for Napoli in 2020 for a club record fee of 80 million euros and had a very successful stint there. However, Antonio Conte made it clear last summer that Osimhen was not part of his plans, and because he couldn't find a permanent move anywhere, he was sent out on loan to Galatasaray last season, where he scored a lot of goals. Now he's returned to Napoli this summer and is again looking for a move away with only 1 year left on his contract. As for his style of play, he's yet another ball-carrying striker, but unlike the other strikers that we've analysed, he's got a proven goal-scoring record. Because when we look at his profile at a glance, we can see that he's in the 99th percentile for non-penalty expected goals, which shows his proven goal-scoring record. And he's also at the top for a lot of key statistics, which shows that he's very reliable as a player. However, one of his big downsides, and we saw this with Delap as well, less so with Ekitike, is that whilst his ball-carrying play is good, his passing play is a bit so-so. And when we look at his 5 worst statistics, we can see the passes attempted and progressive passes are very, very low. But these are statistics taken from his performances in the Europa League last season, because he did not play in one of Europe's big 5 leagues, so it's a small sample set. And his strengths and weaknesses are a bit clearer when we take a look at his polygons. Again, I've gone with 2 polygons, one where he was at Galatasaray and one where he was at Napoli. In both of them, his goal-scoring record is exemplary. No one's questioning that. Osimhen is guaranteed goals. But we do start to see a few differences when we compare some of the other stats, because whilst his interceptions are very strong last year, it was less so back when he was playing in Serie A. And unfortunately for Osimhen, in both polygons, his progressive passes and key passes are both very low, and this could be a cause for concern. Even if he is predominantly a ball-carrying player, he still needs to be able to pass the ball well, especially in the Premier League, which is more passing dominated than perhaps the Italian league, which is more physical. Furthermore, he's got a €75 million release clause, which is a lot of money for someone who's only got 1 year in his contract, and so Chelsea will face competition in terms of spending this money, but they also face competition from Saudi Arabia, as Al Hilal have recently submitted a bid for Osimhen, and when it comes to personal negotiations as well, Chelsea will find it hard to compete with the money in the Saudi league. Finally, whilst he's by no means old at 26, he's still very much in his prime rather than a player just before his prime. This of course comes with advantages that Chelsea know what they're going to get, but it also means that he can't quite be moulded as well into Chelsea's system. So there is a chance that he will just become a bit of a square peg in Chelsea's system. So 3 strikers, one of them's already signed. Do Chelsea need to sign a second? All in all, I'd say yes, because whilst Delap's a good striker who will add to Chelsea's squad, someone like Osimhen or Ekitike can take Chelsea up that extra level and really challenge those top 3 clubs. However, having looked at all 3 strikers, we can see that a lot of them do have their problems in front of goal. And when we compare Jackson to these 3, we can see that they're all quite inconsistent, with the exception of Osimhen really. But as I mentioned before, Osimhen's got his own issues, and I just think he's too expensive with 1 year on his contract and would demand a huge wage bill given that Saudi Arabia are coming calling. Therefore, I think Chelsea are best off trying to sign Ekitike. He will cost a pretty penny, and he is a gamble, but when we look at his underlying numbers, he does look like the kind of player who can take Chelsea from being a top 4 side to a side that could potentially challenge for the title. But what do you think? How can Chelsea fix their problems in front of goal? Do they need another striker as well as Delap, or would you back Jackson to come good next season? Let me know what you think in the comments below, and feel free to like this video if you've liked what you've seen. And if you want to see more content like this, subscribe to this channel and it really helps out the numbers. Also, thank you so much for your support in the previous video. I was not expecting it to do as well as it did at all, and it makes me so happy to see it performing so well. And if you want to see more content like this and some more behind the scenes stuff, go follow The Football Chemist on TikTok and Instagram if you want to see more. I'll see you next time.